Right. Welcome, folks, to this recording. We are now going to do the F1 briefing. Okay, so this F1 is an assignment out of 100 marks. Please check Call Campus for the due dates. It will be printed on the brief that you download. Okay, so don't forget the non-negotiables of referencing. And please make sure that you are aware that we have a 50% penalty if you are caught plagiarizing, 50% off your mark. A lot of students who've had the penalty unfortunately did not recover. So in the live session, we will discuss more about referencing. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I can discuss it then. Okay, so question 1 requires you to discuss the difference between macro and micro. So you will find the theory. Always, folks, use the prescribed textbook as a springboard. I must see references to the prescribed textbook in text in the answer, and then obviously the examples are your own. So the theory on the difference between macro and micro, you refer to the prescribed textbook for, and then you explain it in the context of MultiChoice's business and the general media industry. So you could talk about anything to do with broadcasting, streaming. Remember, MultiChoice also owns not Netflix, but Showmax. Recently, they've got a partnership with Netflix where the decoder also includes Netflix. Okay, so the hint I've said is consider topics, concepts covered in each section, and then relate your chosen macro, micro topics to the business of MultiChoice. So if you want to, you can just, there's a table in the textbook which distinguishes the difference between macro and micro. You could also flip through the textbook to the rest of the year and have a look at what we're going to cover in micro and macro. You'll see in macro, we will cover things like inflation, unemployment, and you could discuss that in the context of MultiChoice. You can look at the table, flip through the textbook, look at the roadmap that I've given you on what we're going to cover, and use examples from there. Remember, a purely theoretical answer earns you no marks because this is an assignment. I have to see examples and application to the concepts of MultiChoice. All right. At the end of this brief, you will see there will be a detailed rubric which you can then read through, and that will help you to make sure you give me everything I require for you to get good marks. Okay. 1.2, your friend who works at SABC has contacted you to explain the impact of the following economic concepts or events. Now, before you get into this answer, do some research on SABC, have a good idea about what's been happening. SABC has been in the news. There's been lots of job losses or proposed job losses. SABC is having funding issues, etc. So just be aware of the entity. So there's the first one. What is the impact of the planned retrenchments? So if SABC, they gave a figure last year about how many people they plan to retrench, what is going to be the impact of this on South Africa, on those individuals, their households, etc. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on the media industry in general? So you can go and look. Last year, we had media reports of quite a few companies. One such company, Associated Media, actually closing their doors. Other entities saying, well, we're going to reduce the number of magazines that or titles that we are producing. Some of the titles we're going to do only in digital and not in online format. So go and do research, and I want specific examples. And then what is the impact, the involvement of SABC in the foreign sector? So what we're talking about here is, this is linking to the circular flow that we covered. And within the circular flow diagram, we have one of the participants being the foreign sector. So how does SABC fit into, and what is the involvement in the foreign sector? So for this, you will have to refer to the circular flow. You have to understand the different participants and their interactions with each other. And then you're going to have to discuss this in the context of SABC. Okay, once again, there will be a detailed rubric at the bottom for you to look through. Okay, in this question, we're now looking at opportunity cost. So what does it mean? Try and explain this in your own words and not quote me definitions word for word from the textbook, even if you have referenced them, because I've said in your own words. Okay, so I don't actually want you to give me a definition from the textbook, even if you quote it in inverted commas, and even if you reference it, I want your understanding, your own words, and your own example. Okay, so you can refer back to the recordings and discussion we've had on opportunity cost and discuss it in the context of any media industry. So this could be music, broadcasting, print media, radio, any media industry. Okay, so please, not a very long-winded answer. It's only 5 marks, a few lines, a brief explanation of opportunity cost, and an application would be fine. Okay, sorry about the noise in the background. It seems like I have a new neighbor that has moved in and is banging, banging, banging right next to me. Okay, conduct some independent research into the budget speech. So in 2020, we had a special budget. Normally, we have budgets delivered only in February and in October. Last year, because of COVID, we had a special budget. So I want you to go and look at that and then answer the following questions. So illustrate means draw the production possibility frontier. This is also known as a production possibility curve or PPC. And that in that diagram, you've got to basically show me the trade-off between any two areas of government spending. You can, draw this by hand and scan it into your assignment if you don't know how to draw this in PowerPoint or Word. So what you basically have to do is 2 areas of government spending that are trade-offs. So which 2 things is government like, I have to take from here to give for that? Like, where is there a trade-off? Where are they having to cut back on one area of spending to fund another area of spending? Okay, and then please, you also have to illustrate the various points, label them, etc. Take note of the instructions. Once again, look at the rubric. Okay, so now in this question, we get into an application of the PPF. So if you follow these instructions, each of these 5 sort of questions are worth 3 marks. The first mark is for saying, what is the impact? So explaining briefly and then saying, does the PPF shift outward or inward? And that will give you your 3 marks. 3 times 5 then is 15. So now we take the PPF theory that we've learned in class and we start to apply it to real world situations, okay? So each of these, first you'll have to explain, for example, the COVID pandemic arrives and requires a 5-week national lockdown. So what is the impact of this? What happened in the national lockdown on the economy? Every one of us sat at home, factories closed. So you can briefly say, there was no production, limited spending, a lot of things we couldn't even buy. I remember I wanted to buy things like puzzles. You couldn't buy anything like that. You could only buy essentials. There was not a lot of large firms had to shut down unless they were producing essential goods or medicine. So there was no production, there was no spending. So what does this mean? This means that the economy wasn't operating at its full capacity. It actually operated at below capacity and the PPF shifted inwards. Okay, so that's kind of how you would explain each of these. I'll give you some time to think about the answers to A to E, and we can share some ideas in the live Zoom session. Right, then in the next section, we now look at the different types of economic systems. And here the emphasis is for you to conduct research into what we call a mixed economic system. So what is a mixed economic system? An example of a mixed economy. And then what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of a mixed economy? Okay, so this one's purely theoretical compared to the previous answer where you actually have to apply concepts. Final question. Arena Holdings is responsible for all of these titles. Use the circular flow model. Illustrate means you must draw. You can even use, you know, a simple circular flow diagram from the internet, but please also just remember to reference and explain the role of media firms such as Arena Holdings within the circular flow. So the hint says you've got to explain what roles, what activities, and what interactions this firm has with households, government, foreign sector, etc. So again, here a purely theoretical answer will not get you any marks. You will have to be able to link and apply the explanation to the case of this company. You know, they produce print media, etc. Right, now a lot of students are very careless in terms of referencing. If you make errors in your referencing, I grade you here. If there's no in-text referencing and no reference list, I disregard this and you get minus 50%. So this referencing is for referencing that's actually there, but which has errors. Then language. A lot of students don't proofread before handing in or uploading their assignment. That means that there are numerous errors, there are spelling errors, and also in some cases, the writing is so poor, I can't even make out what they're trying to say. So get your assignment done in good time and make sure you give it to somebody else to proofread, pick up the mistakes, and then upload it. Okay, as promised, here we have the detailed rubric, and that will tell you exactly what is required for each answer. All right, so in this recording, we have then completed the briefing of the F1. More discussion on this and any questions, any specific things you'd like to address, we will handle in the live session.